Welcome to Hear Her Sports, a podcast about exceptional female athletes and women in sports. There are a lot of us out there. Find us, see us, hear us. Before I get started, a quick reminder that our partner Allie's Bar is offering 50% off and free shipping to Hear Her Sports listeners. Use the promo code HERSPORTS at alliesbar.com. Head to hearhersports.com membership page for more information. They are gluten-free, non-GMO, kosher, and filled with recognizable ingredients. The sweet potato with pistachio, cashew, pumpkin seed energy bars are packed with 6 grams of protein. And now let's get started. Alison O'Hara is one of the original founders of True North Adventures, a kayak and stand-up paddleboard guide company in Homer, Alaska. This is the beginning of her 26th season. She's been doing it for a really long time. She guides around Kachemak Bay and Yukon Island. Alison is a real storyteller, so definitely hold on for an episode filled with orcas, Alaska, plane crashes, Nordic skiing, and women and coaching. I met Alison while I was in Alaska for 2 months on an artist residency, and I started working out with the Homer Women's Nordic team. It's a group of really exceptional, adventurous, and really terrific women who train from mid-October through spring, and I was lucky to be there during that time. And they welcomed me with open arms, and I had a blast, and even considered moving to Homer, Alaska permanently just to be able to train with those guys. We started out our conversation talking about what else but the weather. Here's Alison.
And now we have snow. This past winter we actually had snow, which we hadn't had, I think, from before you were here, like for 3 years. So for the ski team, it was just a whole new world. It was a blessing. And in fact, I was skiing up till a few days ago.
No, that's great.
That's great. And like skiing and kayaking in the same day. I know.
I was looking at your website, and there are a lot of pictures of kayaking through ice flows.
Right, and on the paddle boards. That's our newest trip. You hike up to a glacier lake, and then you paddleboard through the icebergs up to the foot of the glacier.
Wow.
Which is, it's pretty awesome. And it makes for great photos, too.
So let's start at the beginning. I want to find out more about how you ended up in Alaska.
Okay, so I went to college in Vermont, at University of Vermont, and there were other kids there that had been to Homer. They camped on the Homer Spit, so they were spit rats, is what these kids were called that worked at the fish canneries, and I just thought that sounded like an amazing thing to do. And I had never been west of Rochester, New York, and I was supposed to be a debutante, but I ran away to Alaska, and then I camped on the Homer Spit, and I was a spit rat for three summers, and I kind of upgraded to working on commercial fishing boats and all that. But yeah, we were like the Lord of the Flies out there, just a whole bunch of kids, living on the Spit. And we'd put illegal crab pots off of the dock, and, because a lot of us we didn't have any money.
Did you have a job?
Yeah, we finally got a job at the fish cannery, but there was a wait because you had to wait, for the fish to come back, the salmon run to start again. So there was a little bit of a lag time. Yeah, and we dumpster dive and set crab pots out. And then it was just this whole culture, this whole spit rat culture. And then I'd go back to college the next year until I graduated, pretty much.
And that was in the 80s, right?
Yeah, so my first summer was 83. And, Homer was definitely a different place back then. It's gotten a lot more civilized over the years.
Yeah, a lot of the businesses there are very new, so I can't imagine what it was like.
Right, I know. There was like a little, one good restaurant back then, and now there's like a dozen of just, top-notch restaurants, and then there was a lot more of an enclosed feel because we hadn't had the spruce bark beetle, so that that killed a lot of the trees.
Right,
but
right.
It used to be kind of very nestled in the woods, and there were all kinds of dirt roads and crazy characters called, like Dirty Dave, and and I'd come up with a bunch of women, girlfriends of mine and we were camped on the Homer Spit, and we were the Vermont girls.
Of course.
Yeah, we were called the Vermont girls, and then there were like the California guys and all that. So that was, my humble beginnings were on the Homer Spit.
how long were you working at the cannery?
I think I did 3 stints there. So I worked on the egg crew my first year, and then I got upgraded to freezer crew later on, and I worked the night shift too, so it would be like midnight to 10 a.m. And then we'd go have a beer at 10 in the morning.
Right, and then you had the whole day ahead of you.
Right, yeah. So we'd go to the Salty Dog at 10 a.m. and yeah, it was just pretty hilarious existence.
What was the pay then?
Oh wow! So it was probably like, I think it was like $6 an hour, and then you got time and a half.
$6 an hour,
over 8 hours. Yeah.
Wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's incredible. Huh? I always have pictured those jobs as like incredibly high paying.
Well, the only reason you made money was because you worked so much.
Got it.
So I mean, you'd come out with like 80-hour weeks a lot of the time. I mean, we'd just be toast.
Wow.
By the end of it. So I did that for a few years, and then I commercial fished. I worked on halibut boats, those big, huge flat fish. And there were hardly any women doing that at all. And I thought I was pretty cool out there with all the guys. And then I ended up on a all women's boat for
I bet that was awesome.
One opener. Yeah, and we landed the fish, and we were just on top of the world. When we were delivering, and everybody, all these big guys are just like, whoa, those gals actually caught some fish. And so that was pretty exciting, and we did it comfortably. Like, we brought really good food to eat, and we actually took naps, and it was really pleasant. So I actually liked that better.
That's the origin of your guiding business, it sounds like.
Yeah, and then I worked for Fish and Game for a couple years remotely out across the inlet and I spent 2 summers out there doing, salmon studies and lake research out, we'd float plane out there, and then I wouldn't see anybody for 3 months. And that got kind of lonely over there. So then after that, that's when I started the kayaking business.
So I want to go back a little bit. I've been in Alaska for a month, and I know how tough you guys are. So had you, as a kid, been tough and sporty, or did you just arrive there and Alaska turned you tough and sporty?
Well, I thought I was tough and sporty, on the East Coast, but I really got tough up here for sure. And I just have the mentality that I actually studied women's studies in college, and when I got up here, it's like I just wanted to, live being a woman and doing whatever I wanted and whatever I thought I could do. I just didn't want to be, held back. So that's why I kind of, went off into commercial fishing, and I did carpentry, and I just kind of wanted to explore stuff that wasn't normally like in women's fields, I guess.
Did you do sports as a kid?
Yeah, I did. I was really athletic. I played soccer and field hockey, and our school didn't have a gals tennis team, so I played on the guys team. And then I skied a lot, and I actually went to a boarding school in Lake Placid, New York, and it was for outdoorsy kids, which was great because we didn't have class from noon till 4, and you could do your sport, which I think is brilliant to be able to get outdoorsy kids outdoors during the winter, during daylight hours. But I was a tomboy, back on the East Coast. But up here, I really learned how to do stuff, like run a chainsaw and a snow machine that, I resurrected this beater snow machine that I had gotten for free, and just try. And then I got a sled dog team, and I don't know. I just tried everything. And
that's great. That's cool. And I know that you lived in very rugged conditions. Also, I remember you telling me about that.
Right. So for 22 years, I lived off the road. So you had to hike or ski in. Or the last couple of years, I had a snow machine, but I could never start it. So it was just kind of easier to ski in and out than the frustration of, I hate those pull starter things. And then my daughter was born when we lived off the road, so she spent the first 8 years of her life, skiing in and out to our cabin, and we didn't have running water or anything like that. So, yeah, that was definitely an interesting period. And hauling a kid out on your back, skiing, and then by sled as she got older. And then when she was 3, she was skiing on her own, in and out, pretty much. And I had a little tow rope, and I'd tow her up the hill. And then I'd cut her loose on top of the hill and give her a little shove. So she's actually she's a badass little skier now. But she had to be. I mean, that was how she had to get home.
Right. And do you miss that now that you're not living off the road, or are you happy to be in a house with running water and a shower?
Yeah, I would have to say I don't miss it. But I like telling the story about it. And while I was doing it, I loved it. But I like being right in town, and my daughter and I live in this cute little house, and we have 2 bathrooms. So we do a lot of bathroom time now, and we're right on the bike path, so I can bike anywhere. So yeah, and there was so much time spent just getting in and out as we had more of a life in town, like when Katya started going to school, and so it's just the commute was just getting kind of crazy. It was a lot easier when I worked seasonally, and at the end of the fall, I would just go hunker down up at the ranch, and I didn't really need to, commute.
Right.
So it worked well then, but now, no, we've totally got it made in town.
Yeah,
now.
It takes a lot longer to haul water than turn on the tap.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like your whole day is based on survival. Yeah, hauling water in and out, and heating the wood stove, chopping the wood, and all that. And then punching the trail in and out. Like if it snowed, you'd have to snowshoe the trail, and then it was going to be skiable after that. And, all that stuff just took time.
Let's go back again to the kayak business and tell the story of how you started that. Like, why kayaking? Why guiding? Why kayaking?
Right. Yeah. So the whole eco tour thing really hadn't taken off yet. So that was a bonus, because when I started True North, we were kind of just slightly ahead of that curve. So we were established. But basically I was getting, like I said earlier, kind of tired of having my summers be remote out, across Cook Inlet, working for Fish and Game. So I was trying to think of something to do in town. And I'd started to kayak with another friend of mine. And then I just thought it would be really cool to take people out kayaking and guide them. I was like, God, maybe people would pay me. Homer had mostly been a halibut fishing destination for tourists. But occasionally, like families would come up and the guys would want to fish, and then the kids and their moms would want to do something different, or whatever. The first year of business, we just kind of got a lot of, the people that didn't want to fish. And we got I started with a friend, my friend Kevin Bell, and we got some garage sale kayaks. I think our seed money was like $4,000 or something. We put in $2,000 each. And we got a little base camp across the bay on an island. And pretty much we stayed out there just all summer. And the water taxi would bring our clients over to us. And there weren't cell phones then. So we'd either, hear the boat coming in at 10:30 or not. Sometimes we'd still be in our tents. I mean, we were in our 20s. And, I'd come out of my tent, like pressing my teeth, like, oh my God, they're here. So it was sort of, we're these kids trying to start this business. And we had like a, case of ramen noodles and a box of wine. And we were just in seventh heaven over there. I think we had 50 clients.
That's a lot for a first year.
Yeah, we did pretty well. And there was a charter company on the spit that took us in and said, hey, well, we can do your bookings for you. Although, like in the front of the office, there were all these, young women that were selling the halibut trips. And if you wanted to do the kayak trip, they sent you to the little old lady in the back room named Mary Peppa. And she was from Boston. She'd be like chain smoking back there. And somehow she sold 50 trips. I don't know how. She was very kind of disorganized. And one time I went in there and she said, so Alison, some people came in here and they wanted to know what the kayaks were made of. And I said, I think they're made of steel and wood. And I was like, oh, God. It's like, how did she book anybody? and we'd call up and we'd be like, how many people do we have for tomorrow, Mary? And she'd say, well, I think you got 10 for tomorrow. No, you got 2. No, oh, you got nothing for tomorrow. And so those were our humble beginnings. We had one trip a day. It went from like 10 until sometimes we wouldn't get back till 7. And, because that's how long we'd want to be out there. But then we kind of realized, people don't want to be out here all day. And we'd take tons of food and we'd just be out there having a ball and people would just be crawling back to the office after that. So, after some trial and error, we just kind of figured out what trips sort of worked best for your average person and sort of fine-tuned it from there.
Are your trips adventurous still, or are they much more tame?
Well, we have all of the above now. So they start at a half-day trip. That's the shortest. And then for the day trips, you can do our ultimate tour, which is the longest, probably most adventurous. It's an awesome trip. You water taxi across the bay, and then you do a point-to-point kayak trip through the artist community of Halibut Cove. And then you end up at a trailhead, and then you leave the kayaks and hike up to the Glacier Lake, and then back down, and then the water taxi picks you up. And then there's that paddleboarding trip up there. That one's really adventurous. That's like you're just out there. And then we do up to 6-day guided trips too. So kind of all of the above.
Are your clients really in shape and athletic, or is it sort of a wide range?
Really wide range. Right now we have a battleship in here. There's a Navy battleship. Yeah, and so we've had these sailors come out.
Oh, that's cool.
Yesterday
that's awesome.
We had 2 gal Navy officers come out and they did the ultimate tour. So you just never know. If people want to go out, even if they have, issues, I really like to get people out there if they're game. Like one year I had a paraplegic come out and, got him out there. He was an experienced kayaker from Canada. And so if they're willing to do it, I'm willing to give it a whirl.
What's been your most rewarding trip or some memorable trips?
Well, there's been some pretty awesome wildlife experiences, of course. Probably one time we saw a pod of orcas surface about half a mile away. And then the next thing you knew, they were right next to us, and we were like getting pinned by them next to a rock cliff. And Wow. They were kind of surfacing right next to us, and we could see, the water bubbling underneath us. And that was kind of, exhilarating and terrifying. Both.
I mean, they surely knew you were there. They were kind of messing with you?
Yeah, they were just checking us out. And they, surfaced for a couple minutes around us, and then they were gone. And then it's just like your hair's standing on end. It's just like, oh my God. It was like so awesome, but just completely terrifying. And, and of course for me it was like that. And I always scream, which never helps because then, it's like, oh God, the guide's screaming. But it's just so overwhelmingly awesome. Every time the whales I love, they're just really super fun to see, and you can only see part of them, like the top part of them, periodically, so you don't really know what they're doing below the surface. One time we had a super pod of orcas. I don't know if you know about that, but
No.
Because they all live with their mothers, so they live in small pods. They're matriarchal, and so periodically they have to get together in super pods to diversify their gene pools. So somehow they communicate, like acoustically, they get the word out to the other pods in their areas, and they decide where to meet annually, and it's almost to the day, which is just so magical. It's usually in early August, and so one year we had the super pod was in Kachemak Bay, and it's usually for about 12 hours. They meet, and then it's just like this big party. And so strewn out in between our base camp and then the harbor were about 100 orca whales, and so they mate, and then they all go, they essentially have a one-night stand, and then they go back to their mothers, and then whichever pod the calf is born into, it stays in for its whole life with its mother. So even the big gnarly alpha male, goes back to his mother, and that's where he will stay for the rest of his life.
Wow. So
yeah, oh God, it was just incredible. They were everywhere, like breaching and spy hopping. That's when their noses just peek up out of the water and they kind of look around. And then they were tail lobbing. That's when they smack their tails against the water. And every time another pod would come into the bay, they'd get excited all over again. And of course, going back and forth in the water taxi, we would stop, and because it was hard to keep on schedule, you just had to stop, cut the engine, and just let the whales kind of do their thing around you. So of course we kept getting later and later and later for our pickups, but people kind of understood that.
Yeah, what a bonus so what if you're late?
Exactly. Yeah, and it was like there was some soundtrack playing underneath the water, like the Peanuts theme song or something. The whales were just so perky and excited. So that was a neat experience for sure. And then of course there's been the crazy weather days where you get kind of weathered in somewhere. Like I got weathered in on an overnight trip. There were 12-foot seas, so we had to hunker down on this little beach. And I was with a family, but the boat was like, I don't know, it was probably 6 hours late. And I was with a family with adult children, and then one of them had there was the son and his wife, and they actually went to take a nap while we were waiting for the boat. And then I got a card a few months later saying that she got pregnant waiting for the boat, so that was kind of cool.
That's not a nap.
I know, you call that a nap. Yeah, it's like a nap. Close. And they actually, the middle name of the boy is Kayak.
Have you had any really scary experiences? I mean, like truly scary, safety scary type experiences?
Probably the scariest one was we were trying to do fly-in trips on the other side of the mountains. So in the Gulf of Alaska, so you'd take a float plane, and we were doing a reconnaissance trip, Kevin and I. We did an 8-day trip over there in the Kenai Fjords. And when we were coming back, the weather picked up like really badly. It was like 50 knot winds probably, and the plane was supposed to pick us up, and they were late, and the later it got, like the worse the weather got, and like the wind was just blowing, or these big, heavy bags of, that had our collapsible kayak in it. And then we kind of threw in the hat. We were like, oh, he's probably not coming. And we actually did not want him to come because it was so rough and just so gnarly. And then right as we started to set up camp, all of a sudden we saw this light bobbing around. We're like, oh no, it's the plane. And so he landed, and then the pilot was like, okay, get all your stuff in here, like super fast. We're just like throwing all our stuff in. And there were these huge gusts of wind. I was just like, oh God, I really don't want to go up in this plane. And then right as we started taking off, the pilot starts like swearing up a storm. And he had no control because the bags had gotten stuck on one of the controls, so we couldn't actually get the plane up, and it was almost getting slammed into the water. And finally we moved a bag, and he got the controls back, and then we got aloft out of there. And then the whole way back, we just got pummeled up there in this little teeny plane. But then we landed and just kind of sat there. It took us a while to even get out of the plane. We were just so shaken up. But that was a close call. It was a really close call.
That was one thing I noticed when I was in Alaska, just how dependent everyone is on planes. And
right.
You sort of want a plane, but not want to fly the plane.
Exactly. I know. And stuff can go wrong on boats, but at least you're on something kind of firm. Like you can't like drop out of the air. But speaking of planes, like we also had a plane crash. There was a plane crash on Yukon Island about 12 years ago, right next to our base camp. I was on the beach with a group, and I was doing the kayak orientation, and we heard this airplane cut out, a little Super Cubby kind of airplane. It was actually a Cessna 206, and so I stopped the orientation, and we all ran around the other side of a rock, and this plane was coming in, obviously trying to make an emergency landing, and it just quit, and it nosedived right onto the beach. And so all my little clients, we were all in spray skirts, and we had to rescue 4 people out of this commercial plane coming from Seldovia over to Homer. That was probably my most hair-raising experience out there, was rescuing these people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Back to the business a little bit. How many employees now do you have?
About 15.
Whoa, that's a lot. Are they all guides, or do you have other support people?
So there's guides, and then there's couple office people.
No more Mary, whatever.
Yeah, no more Mary Pepper. Oh my God. No, I have an amazing office person named Melanie Champagne.
And she knows that the kayaks aren't made out of steel and wood.
Yeah. Yeah, we've come a long way from my humble beginnings. Yeah, Melanie is she keeps everything together. She's the glue, for sure, of the business, because I'm not that good with detail stuff. So, and then there's some deckhands that are kids. I like to hire kids, and Katya, my daughter's friends, deckhand on the boat. So there's 2 water taxis, a couple boat drivers, deckhands, a couple office people, and then there's about 8 guides that do, paddleboarding and kayaking.
And are you still guiding as well?
Yeah, it's kind of what I do best, is the guiding part, for sure. And I love the paddleboarding trips, and so that it's nice for me to do something fresh, because this is my 26th year guiding. But I still like going out, kayaking around Yukon. I've probably been around that island, a few thousand times. It's my office. I love it. It's a beautiful place to be.
What do you like about guiding, and why do you think you're good at that?
Well, I love making the area come alive. I love telling stories about, like the old homesteaders on the island, or we have this amazing archaeologist, a female archaeologist that was here in 1929, named Frederica de Laguna. And I love talking about her and her whole story, and then all the intertidal life, the big sunflower sea stars and sea anemones, and, just sharing all that rich information, and then, hopefully getting people interested in, protecting our bay or, other really important, amazing areas in nature. But I'd say that's why I like to do it. I just like to, teach people about our, that little island has so much to tell about it, even though, it's beautiful just looking at it, but I think the stories are just really what makes it an amazing place to be and learn about.
Well, you're certainly a good storyteller.
Oh, thanks. I got it from my dad.
That's good. Have you had any issues being a female guide or run into sexism?
Occasionally. I used to have a small water taxi. It was super cute, called the Harlequin, and it was locally made here in town. And people would look at me, I'm kind of small, and they'd look at the boat and they'd be like, "Really? You want me to go across the Alaskan Ocean in that little Barbie boat with you?" And, I kind of had that a couple times. And but because I've been doing it so long, I think I come off as really confident. But it took a while to get to that place. And honestly, it was only really a couple times that happened. And then I straightened them out pretty quick.
Well, that's good.
I know. And I honestly think it was just because I felt really solid, most of the time. And,
right.
And if I didn't, I learned early how to hide it. Like when things got really bad, like the sunglasses come down over the eyes to, hide the terror. And I'm pretty chill, like Grace under pressure externally, I think, even though internally it's like, I'm scared to death, but I think I present it, things in a calm way.
Well, you must have some, sort of inner sense of confidence. You started this business when you were quite young.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. And so over the years, I think one of my strong points is just dealing with chaotic stuff, because sometimes it just can get kind of nuts out there. It's just, there's so many logistics, and then the weather and the tides and the people and the guides and but that's where I thrive, I think, is just in kind of more of a chaotic environment. That's why I'm not that good in the office, where it's like I have to be precise and like my numbers have to align, and I'm not so good at that. It's a good job for me.
Yeah. You also do a bunch of other stuff. You ski, and I know you're involved with coaching high school, right? Is that right?
Right. Yeah, I've coached kids like in the junior Nordic ski program, and then I coached the middle school, and now I'm the high school ski coach. So I've pretty much followed my daughter. Now she's a sophomore in high school, so I just kind of follow her up through. So I can kind of, keep an eye on her.
Yep.
But she likes it too. And then I coach the Homer Women's Nordic ski team too.
Tell a little bit about the Homer Women's Nordic.
Sure. So Megan Carrazza started that probably like 8 or 9 years ago. And she's an amazing force. She passed the organization on to four members, of which I'm one of them. And so we kind of took over last year. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing group of people. I honestly, I didn't know how to ski. I had never raced until I started Homer Women's Nordic with Megan. And I'd just regular backcountry skied, kind of what I call tootling. But over the years, over the last 9 years, I've really learned how to skate ski and then classic ski race and get really involved in teaching technique and race strategy plans. And, I've done stuff in the last 9 years that I never, ever would have thought I would have done, like racing 40K skate ski races and, and coaching a high school ski team. And I owe a lot of that to Megan Kraza just really having faith in me, and getting me out there. Like my first year of Homer Women's Nordic, I wanted to do the 25K tour of Anchorage, and Megan refused. She was like, no, you have enough training to do that 40K, and you get out there and do it. And I'm so glad I did. So.
I thought you were going to say that she didn't want you to do 25K because it was too much, but no, she wanted you to do 40K.
Yes. She was not having me do the 25K. It was not an option.
I love it.
So I know. And she was just, and I love her whole idea of that we give back to the community. That was a very important thing because that group, it only costs $100 a year, and you get, 6-7 months of coaching, top-notch coaching. But in exchange for that, she really likes people to go out and, and teach other people and spread the ski love.
She is an amazing, amazing coach. I mean, I've had a few coaches, and she really is one of the best, if not the best. It's extraordinary how well she explains it and how well she knows it from an internal sense, but also how well she's kept that group together.
Yeah. Yeah. And she adds really like interesting slants to stuff. Like, for instance, she always tries to have some sort of analogy for the day. Like when we were doing poling, like you want to have your arms bent when you start double poling. And then you want to lengthen them out in the back. So she would compare that to like a mullet hairdo. So short in the front, long in the back. And it's like you never forget
You can't forget it.
I get out there. I know, I'm like double pulling. I'm like mullet. Right. Short in the front, long in the back. Here I go. So, she's very creative. So I've tried to do that when I teach is, just really get that creative element, which has been really important with the high school ski team and with kids, because you can just make it, that much more fun and interesting. And then they never know what's going to be coming at them the next day, so they show up. They're like, now what's she going to make us do?
Are you also really aware of intervals and an endurance day and a sprint day and a rest day? Do you have a huge plan for the whole season and for each week and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, yeah, it's pretty much that formula, especially in the beginning of the season before we get into kind of back-to-back races. So just, building everybody's stamina up and, you want to do the endurance, and then the speed intervals and hill intervals, like you said, is definitely key. And then when we start racing, it gets a little easy. We don't push them quite as much, and we try to make it fun. And then we work a lot on race strategies and stuff. Like my big thing this year with the kids was learning how to draft.
Oh,
which you probably do, biking.
Yeah.
But like once you get to a certain speed, I mean, drafting is huge. So really working on a lot of that strategy, that mental stuff. And I think that's been sort of fun for the kids because it's sort of intriguing. And they really get to think about, different ways of improving their race times and stuff. Well, it's interesting with the kids because, like, for instance, this year I was chasing them all around, and they're really fit. I mean, like,
and they're young.
So one of the kids, and they're young, and one of our skiers just broke. I think it was like a 5-minute 40-second mile. These guys are strong and fast and fit. So when I'm training with them, and I'm 53, it's like, I feel like I'm just like a slug out there. And then I get into racing with my peers, and it's like, well, actually, I'm pretty darn fast once I get around, like people in my age group. So I end up kind of training with them, and then inadvertently, and when I get to do my own races, I do really well. So it's sort of, I do both at the same time.
That's nice.
Yeah. So I had 2 really good races this past year, better than ever in my whole life. So basically, it ain't over till it's over, as far as I'm concerned. I just feel really great that I'm getting better in my 50s instead of, getting slower. So I'm really excited about that. I just feel really strong and good. And yeah, I got 3rd in my age group in the Tour of Anchorage.
Oh, wow. That's a big event.
Yeah, and then 22nd overall out of like 250 people. And then I got 4th in the Homer Marathon here.
Running marathon. Did you run?
No, it's the ski marathon. I'm a terrible runner. I'm really slow. So I think it's just, if I add my arms, then I'm, because of skiing, you can use your arms. And then I'm
Oh, that's
good
right, because of all that kayaking.
Of all the kayaking. Yeah, it's like you add my legs and it slows me down.
That's funny. Tell me more about the Homer Women's Nordic and what you guys are doing in the summer, if anything. I can't remember if anything happens during the summer.
Yeah, usually we try to have, you have X amount of hours that you train in the summer. So, and then you get like a prize at the end of it. And then a lot of us try to do the Lost Lake Run. It's a 16-mile trail run, which is awesome in Seward. It goes up and over a mountain. So a lot of people train for that during the summer. And then the training starts in earnest in like October 1st. And that's dry land stuff. So it's like roller skiing and then hill intervals, and we'll do beach runs. And then we do beach plyometrics. You might have done that. Did you ever do that on the beach? So we go down to the low tide, and then you just do plyometrics. So it's kind of like working on fast twitch muscles, and we do like ski jumps, and then we'll grab rocks and do like rocks off the beach and do, tricep lifts and blah, blah, blah. And we'll do plank positions. So we love to do that, get out on the beach. So we try to shake it up with the dry land training. And then as soon as the snow flies, we're out on our rock skis. So even if, it might be like 50% snow, 50% grass, we're out there, as soon as we can.
I never knew what rock skis were until I was with you guys. I was like, what the hell's a rock ski?
What the heck's a rock ski? So yeah, as soon as we can, we're out on the snow. And then basically we train to peak for the Tour of Anchorage is what most people are peaking for. And that's usually the first week in March up in Anchorage. And then we all go up together, which is one of the things I just love about Homer Women's Nordic is we get a big house and people bring their kids, you bring your families for sure. And so sometimes people will do, 3 races in a row and you just have this, like your little ski family. And one gal has 4 little kids and I just love that time, being with those little kids. And so it's just a real community and all the women really support each other. Like if someone has a baby or they're sick, it's like a meal train set up. And so we make sure they're fed for the next 3 weeks or it's just offers a lot of emotional support and camaraderie. It's not just skiing.
I was impressed with sort of the value of having an all-women's training group, and it was particularly exciting because everybody was, so enthusiastic and so encouraging and, like really in a real way wanted every single person, regardless of their ability level, to succeed and do well and show up the next day. I think that's really unique.
Yeah, and I think it's, sometimes it comes up, like, because I think the men in Homer are really jealous because there's not like a Homer men's Nordic. And so it comes up sometimes, like having it co-ed. And we're talking about maybe having one co-ed day, like a Saturday, once a week. But none of us want to lose that, just having it be all women's, because I think the relationships are going to develop to be a lot closer. And, we can just kind of talk about anything. And there's not that sort of, competition with, having men there, and just with hill intervals or something where, and then they're going to all be in the front. And I think the whole dynamic would for sure change. And sometimes I like to set up like a little ski jump or something for women to do. And I think it's a lot less intimidating if you're there and you can just feel like you can fall down and you don't have to, keep up with any guys out there. So I think we're going to for sure just keep the integrity of the women's group for the most part.
I like it. I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm.
And is your high school team? It's men and women though, right?
Yeah, it's and there's about 22 kids on the team, and the girls team is actually really, really strong, and they're young. So I think by the time they're seniors, they're going to really be pretty formidable out there. I'm really looking forward to see what they come up with. And then the guys team is pretty young too. And they're all just really nice kids. And they've, I've known a lot of them for, since they were in junior Nordic. And then quite a few of them worked for me in the summer, which is really neat. So we just have a really strong relationship with them. But we try to do, like trail runs all summer long. And I like to keep events for the high school kids on the ski team just to keep in shape and see each other and do fun stuff.
And do any of them, or have any of them gone on to, national racing or international racing?
We had one kid that was tried out for the Junior Olympics, but he didn't make it. But he's only a sophomore, so, in a couple of years, maybe he'll have a better chance. But, it's so competitive up here.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's just nuts, and we have the APU, Alaska Pacific University, that just pumps out some world-class skiers out of there, like Keegan Randall and then Holly Brooks. She's an Olympian as well. She taught there at APU, so that's like a world-class, ski institution there. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's, and it's a lot of the psychological stuff. Like some of the kids, they get really frustrated, like he didn't make it into, JOs this year. And so I've been really working with him on just building his confidence and all that. But we'll see what happens.
Well, I could talk to you all day, I think, but it's been almost an hour. So
holy cow!
Well, it was a real treat to talk to you again and hear your voice and hear more about Alaska. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what it's all about, but I'm game.
Thanks for listening. All episodes are available on iTunes, Stitcher, and from hearhersports.com listen page. If you like this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you would go to iTunes and leave me a review. Also, every other week, I'm sending out a short email filled with related articles, links to videos and highlights from the episode, and some other good stuff. Subscribe at hearhersports.com. Order Allie's Bar using the code HERSPORTS to get 50% off and free shipping. Allie's Bars are for, during, and after workouts, or for a quick meal when you're short on time. You can find me on social media at hearhersports.com.